My name is Thelma Myers. I'm 72 years old. And the day I was discharged from the hospital, my daughter-in-law threw my mother's cardigan into the bin and told me it was practically rags. I got out of bed. 2 days post-surgery, IV trailing from my wrist. I walked to that gray plastic bin under the fluorescent light, and I pulled my mother's cardigan out of it. Heather gray wool against a white plastic liner. I folded it, put it in my bag, and I didn't say a single word. 2 days later, my son called, voice shaking. "Mom, what was in the inside pocket?" But the cardigan was only the beginning. What my daughter-in-law did with my property records while I was in that hospital bed, and what her mother did behind my back, made the cardigan look like the easy part. Welcome back to Alpha Mom Stories, a channel where mothers share the moments that tested everything they believed and the quiet strength that carried them through. If this one stays with you, drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. Thelma Myers, retired registered nurse, 36 years in healthcare, 28 on the floor at Good Shepherd Hospital, 8 teaching at the community college nursing program. I started as a scholarship girl. My mother, Irene, worked the school cafeteria for 30 years, up at 4:30 every morning to heat the ovens and stack the trays. She packed my lunch every day through nursing school in the same brown bags she used at work, my name written across the fold in her careful printing. I rose to head of the medical surgical unit, trained over 200 nurses across 3 decades. Didn't teach from textbooks, taught from bedside. You learn nursing from the patient, not the page. Married Arthur Myers, master plumber, self-employed, hands like sandpaper, and a heart like warm water. Together, 44 years. He died 6 years ago at our kitchen table, mid-breakfast heart attack between his second cup of coffee and his toast. I performed CPR for 9 minutes until the ambulance arrived. 36 years of nursing, and I couldn't save the one person who mattered most. The house is paid off. $420,000 worth of colonial on Maple Drive, with a front porch Arthur rebuilt in 2006 and a backyard where I still grow tomatoes every July. Savings at $295,000. Pension from the hospital, comfortable, independent. I still take my own blood pressure every morning. Still change my furnace filters on schedule. Still drive myself to the grocery store, the bank, the hardware store where I buy weather stripping every October. Old nurses don't retire. They just stop clocking in. I spent 36 years reading vital signs. I can tell when someone's pulse is lying. That skill turned out to be useful for more than hospital patients. Tuesday, day 2 after knee replacement surgery. I was propped up in the hospital bed at Good Shepherd, the ward where I'd spent 28 years taking care of other people. Pain medication made the room swim. The knee brace locked my right leg straight. The IV dripped on schedule. I counted the drops out of habit. Vanessa arrived at 10 in the morning. My daughter-in-law, 38 years old, real estate agent, married to my son Kevin for 12 years. "I'm here to help, Mom. Let me tidy up." She reorganized the bedside table, threw away my crossword book, the one I was halfway through, replaced my reading glasses case with a new one from TJ Maxx, moved my water pitcher to the wrong side. Small things, each one a correction. Then she picked up the cardigan from the chair beside the bed. Heather gray wool. Leather buttons, 2 of them cracked. The left cuff darned 3 times over the years, the wool worn thin where I reached across patients. A faint lavender scent from my closet, mixing with the hospital's antiseptic. Vanessa held it up, pinched the frayed collar between 2 fingers like she was handling something from a donation bin. "It's practically rags, Mom. I brought you a nice fleece. Let's not bring this home." She dropped it into the hospital room bin, gray wool folded over the white plastic liner. Under the fluorescent light, it looked small, like something you wouldn't miss. I watched from the bed, hands flat on the blanket, IV tube trailing from my wrist. The pain medication was making my thoughts soft, but not that soft. Not soft enough to miss what just happened. I said nothing. I stared at the bin, remembered. Irene knitting that cardigan. Winter 1979. Our apartment above the hardware store on Oak Street. My mother at the kitchen table, needles clicking against each other like a conversation between her hands, coffee cooling beside her elbow. One skein of heather gray wool, purchased with overtime pay from the school cafeteria, 3 extra shifts serving mashed potatoes and Salisbury steak to other people's children. I passed my RN boards on a Tuesday in March. My mother gave me the cardigan on Wednesday. She'd been knitting it for 6 weeks every night after her shift, and I'd thought she was making dishcloths. "For your first winter as a nurse," she said. "Hospitals are cold." I wore it every winter for 45 years, to the early shifts when the sky was still black, to the night shifts when the hallways smelled like floor wax and saline, to the day I retired when the staff lined the corridor and clapped, and I stood there in that heather gray wool trying not to cry. The leather buttons came from Arthur's old work coat, the one he wore crawling under houses to fix pipes. He sewed them on himself, only sewing he ever did. His fingers were too thick for the needle, so he used pliers to push it through. My mother's hands knit every stitch. My husband's hands sewed the buttons. That cardigan held the 2 people who loved me most, and my daughter-in-law called it rags. The interior pocket. I watched Irene add it in 1986. A deep pocket on the right side, hidden behind the lining, closed with a snap she salvaged from an old winter coat. "Mama, what's that for?" She smiled. A nurse should always have a safe pocket, for things that matter. I never looked inside it. 40 years. I assumed it was empty. Just Irene's habit of building utility into everything she made with her hands. Vanessa went to the cafeteria. "I'll grab you a decaf, Mom. Be right back." I waited, counted to 20. A nurse's habit. You don't rush to the patient's side until you know the hallway is clear. You assess the room, then you act. I pushed the blanket off, swung my legs over the side of the bed. The knee brace locked against the mattress edge, and I had to angle my hip to get my feet on the cold linoleum. The IV stand wobbled when I grabbed it. 3 steps to the bin, 3 steps on a knee that had been sawed open and bolted back together 48 hours ago. 72 years old, barefoot on hospital tile, and walking on determination because medication alone wouldn't have gotten me there. I reached in. The cardigan was folded over the white liner, resting on top of my crossword book. I pulled it out. The wool was cool from the air conditioning. I held it against my chest for 2 seconds, just long enough to feel how heavy 45 years of wool can be. Then I shook it once, folded it with the precision of a woman who has folded surgical drapes for 3 decades, tucked it into my overnight bag, zipped the bag shut, walked back to bed, got in, pulled the blanket up. When Vanessa returned with the decaf, the bin was empty except for the crossword book. The bag was zipped. I was in bed, eyes closed, breathing slow. She set the coffee on the wrong side of the table and left at noon. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. My mother taught me something I carried longer than any nursing degree. You don't explain yourself to someone who sees everything you love as something to throw away. Thursday, discharge day. I rode home in the back seat of Kevin's sedan, the overnight bag on my lap with the cardigan inside. Vanessa rode shotgun, scrolling her phone. Kevin drove careful, the way he does when he's performing responsibility. Home, 14 Maple Drive, a colonial with a wraparound porch and a copper mailbox Arthur installed in 1998. His plumbing van is still parked in the driveway. White, faded, Myers Plumbing in blue letters on the side panel. I haven't sold it in 6 years. Some mornings I look out the kitchen window and for 1 second I think he's about to come inside for coffee. Kevin helped me to the door. Vanessa carried my bag. Inside, I stood in the hallway and let the house tell me what had happened while I was gone. The filing cabinet in the study. Top drawer ajar. It is never ajar. I am a nurse. I close everything. Drawers, charts, cabinet doors. 36 years of closing things properly. The kitchen junk drawer, reorganized. My system was by function. Flashlight, batteries, tape, screwdrivers, stamps. Someone had rifled through it and put things back in no order at all. The bedroom closet. My shoeboxes had been moved. I keep tax records in shoeboxes. Arthur's filing system. A plumber's approach to paperwork. 2 boxes were out of sequence. The one labeled 2018 to 2020 was in front of the one labeled 2015 to 2017. Vanessa, I did some tidying while you were in the hospital, Mom. The house needed it. I said, thank you, Vanessa. Nurse's voice, neutral. The same tone I used when a patient's chart didn't match the symptoms. That night, alone, I checked the filing cabinet. The folder labeled 412 Birch Lane, property tax records for the duplex, was slightly out of position. Someone had pulled it out and put it back. Not quite right. Close enough to fool most people. But not a nurse who files by feel. Friday night. The house was quiet. The furnace hummed. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked twice and stopped. I took the cardigan out of the overnight bag, held it to my face. Lavender. Faintly. Irene. The scent of her closet, her dresser drawer, the sachet she tucked between folded sweaters because she read in a women's magazine that lavender kept moths away and memories close. I fingered the interior pocket on the right side. The snap Irene had salvaged from a dead man's winter coat. Her brother-in-law's after he passed in '85. She saved every usable piece of hardware. Buttons, snaps, zippers. Waste is for people who don't know what things cost, she told me once. I'd never opened that pocket. 40 years. It felt flat. I assumed it was empty. I unsnapped it, reached inside, felt paper, folded paper, layered, pressed smooth by decades of body heat and wool. I pulled out 3 items. First, a folded document, a property deed, 412 Birch Lane, purchased 1986, $52,000. Grantee, Irene Caldwell, my mother. Second, a letter. Irene's handwriting, the same careful print that labeled cafeteria trays for 30 years, dated 2008. Thelma, the duplex is yours. Arthur and I agreed. He paid for it, I signed for it, but it was always meant for you. You worked nights for 20 years to keep this family fed. This is your safety net. Don't let anyone take it. Love, Mama. Third, a smaller note. Arthur's handwriting, blocky, a plumber's print, undated. The Birch Lane property is Thelma's. I put it in Irene's name for the mortgage, but it's Thelma's building. She earned every brick of it. I sat on the bed, held the 3 documents against the cardigan, read Irene's letter twice. Then I folded the documents back into the pocket and pressed the snap shut. They had waited 40 years in there. They could wait one more night. My mother hid a building inside a cardigan pocket. She sewed it shut with a snap from a dead man's coat, and she trusted me to keep the sweater long enough to find it. Saturday morning, 7:40. My phone rang on the nightstand. Kevin. His voice was shaking. Not the way it shook when he called to tell me Arthur had collapsed. That was shock. This was something else. This was calculation trying to sound like concern. Mom, I need to talk to you. Vanessa found your property tax records for a place on Birch Lane. She said you own a duplex? I do. You never told us. You never asked. Silence on his end. Then, Vanessa says it's worth over $300,000. She ran the comps. I let those words sit in the air for 3 full seconds. The length of time it takes to draw blood from a difficult vein. Then, Vanessa ran comps on my property. Kevin backtracked, the verbal equivalent of a man stepping off a scale he doesn't want to read. She's a real estate agent, Mom. She was just curious. Curious, the word people use when they mean calculating. Then his voice dropped. Mom, I came by the house this morning to check on you. I saw your overnight bag, the cardigan. I felt something in the pocket. 3 seconds of silence again. Mom, what was in the inside pocket? My mother's handwriting, Kevin. That's what was in the inside pocket. He pushed forward. There's a deed and a letter. Vanessa says the title is Cloudy. Grandma Irene's name is still on it. He paused. She says we need to talk about this as a family. Vanessa says, I let each repetition land. What do you say, Kevin? Silence, the kind that fills the space where an honest answer should be. Then, I think we should talk. My daughter-in-law threw a $340,000 property deed into a hospital bin inside a cardigan she called Rags. Vanessa didn't wait. She never does. Urgency is her natural setting, the way stillness is mine. Within hours of finding the property tax records in my filing cabinet, she was working. I learned this later from Patricia, who pulled the digital trail piece by piece like sutures from a wound. From her laptop MLS search, 412 Birch Lane, duplex built 1952, 2,400 square feet total, 2 units. Currently rented, Unit A to Linda Vasquez at $1,500 a month, Unit B to the Garcia family at $1,400. Total rental income, $2,900 a month, $34,800 a year. Comparable sales, 3 duplexes on Birch Lane and surrounding streets sold in the past 18 months. Range, 310 to 385. Vanessa's estimate, $340,000. Her commission at 6%, $20,400. She called her colleague at the agency, Dennis Moore, 44. I might have a listing coming in. Family property, needs some work. Birch Lane duplex. She called a property investor, Frank Harmon, 50, who buys multifamily units in the county. I have a duplex that might be available soon, off market. Could do $320,000. $20,000 below her own estimate. A quick sale for a quick commission. That evening, Vanessa sat across from Kevin at their kitchen table, the one they bought on credit, and laid it out. Your mother has been sitting on this property for 14 years, collecting rent. She never told us. Vanessa leaned forward. We're $68,000 in debt, Kevin. That duplex could solve everything. She's my mother, Vanessa. And you're my husband and Bryce's father. Whose family are you protecting? Let me pause here. My daughter-in-law called my mother's cardigan rags and threw it in a hospital bin while I was recovering from surgery. 48 hours later, she was running market comps on my property and calling investors. If you've ever watched someone you trusted calculate the dollar value of your life while you were still healing, you know exactly how that Saturday night felt. Drop a comment if you've been there. Subscribe if you haven't already, because what Vanessa's mother did next is something I still can't believe. I didn't hear the next conversation myself. Kevin told me later, in pieces, over weeks, when the shame loosened his tongue. Sunday, Vanessa called her mother. Gretchen Cole Hale, 63 years old, cleaned houses for 25 years. The Hendersons, the Warrens, the Fitzpatricks, women with retirement accounts and rental properties and silver polish under their kitchen sinks. Gretchen scrubbed their toilets and learned their financial architectures. She knew where they kept their checkbooks, their safe deposit keys, their property tax folders, not because she snooped, because when you clean a house for 12 years, you see where every drawer leads. Vanessa laid out the situation. Duplex, $340,000, cloudy title. Thelma, living alone. Gretchen's voice went flat, the voice of a woman who spent a quarter century on the outside of comfortable lives, memorizing the floor plan. How much does she have total? The house is $420. The duplex is $340. Vanessa paused. Savings, Kevin checked from his computer, around $300,000, plus the rental income. Over $1 million, and she's living in that house alone, wearing a sweater from 1979. Gretchen's advice came in numbered steps. Tactical. Like instructions from someone who'd rehearsed this in her head for decades. Get the family aligned. Tell everyone she's been hiding assets. That makes her the problem. Get her assessed. She just had surgery. She's 72. Gretchen's voice hardened. She kept a raggedy sweater like it was gold. That's hoarding behavior. Call her doctor. Power of attorney. If she's incompetent, Kevin manages her assets. A beat. If Kevin manages her assets, you list the duplex. Vanessa hesitated. That's aggressive. I cleaned houses for women like her for 25 years. They always have more than they show. Gretchen's voice dropped. And they always say it's for the family, right up until you ask for your share. Gretchen hung up. Then she called Good Shepherd Hospital's patient advocacy office. I'm calling about my daughter-in-law, Thelma Myers. She was just discharged. A pause. I'd like to request her discharge summary and cognitive assessment results. Ma'am, are you on the patient's authorized contact list? I'm family. The receptionist flagged the call. Gretchen was not on the list. Monday morning, 8:47. Kevin sat at his desk on the third floor of Regional Heritage Insurance. IT department, fluorescent lights, ergonomic chair. Vanessa picked out from a catalog a framed photo of Bryce on the corner of the desk. Their 11-year-old son, the one whose private school tuition at $18,000 a year was part of the $68,000 they owed. Vanessa's text arrived at 8:47 a.m. Check your mom's accounts, see what else she's hiding. Savings, checking, CDs. I need the full picture. Kevin stared at the message. Then he opened his browser, typed in my bank's URL. He'd had my password for 3 years. I gave it to him when he set up my online banking. In case of emergency, I'd said. This was not an emergency. This was inventory. He logged in from his work computer at 8:52 a.m., checked the balances. Savings, $198,000. Checking, $14,500. Certificate of deposit, $82,000. Total liquid assets, $294,500. He took screenshots, sent them to Vanessa. Her reply came fast. Almost $300,000 in the bank, plus the house, plus the duplex. Then, your mother is sitting on over $1 million while we drown in debt. This isn't about greed, Kevin. It's about fairness. Fairness, another word people use when they mean entitlement. What Kevin didn't understand, because IT project managers don't always understand their own systems, was that his employer's monitoring software logs every URL accessed from company devices. My bank's login page, accessed at 8:52 a.m. from Kevin Meyer's workstation, was flagged in the weekly compliance report. And my bank log's IP addresses for every account access, 2 separate systems, 2 records Kevin couldn't erase, didn't know existed, and never thought to worry about. He thought he was checking a bank balance. His company's IT system recorded him committing a policy violation. Monday night, my bedroom. The cardigan was spread across the quilt, heather gray against the white cotton, and the 3 documents were on the nightstand under the lamp Arthur bought at a yard sale in 2003. I picked up Irene's letter. The paper had yellowed along the creases. 14 years inside a wool pocket will do that. The oils from the yarn seep into the fibers, and the paper takes on the faint gold of age. I read the keyline again. You worked nights for 20 years to keep this family fed. This is your safety net. Don't let anyone take it. 20 years of night shifts. I remember the specifics because nurses remember specifics. 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Home by 7:30. Sleep until 2. Up for Kevin's school bus at 3:15. Dinner on the table by 6. Arthur home by 7. Boots caked with pipe solder, smelling of copper and PVC cement. I remembered Irene at the cafeteria. 5 a.m. hairnet on, trays stacked in rows of 12. I used to stop by before my shift. She'd slide me a wrapped biscuit across the counter. Eat. Nurses skip meals. She was right. We do. Irene never had much. Her husband, my father, died when I was 12. Heart failure. Same as what would take Arthur more than 50 years later. She raised me on cafeteria wages, but she saved. Coin by coin. Dollar by dollar. When Arthur needed a co-signer for the duplex mortgage in 1986, Irene signed without blinking. Your husband works with his hands, she said. That building is his hands turned into walls. My mother fed other people's children for 30 years. My husband fixed other people's pipes for 35. They bought me a building with hands that never stopped working, and my daughter-in-law wanted to sell it for a commission. I picked up my phone. Called Patricia Callahan. Patricia, it's Thelma. I need your help. It's about a property deed I found in my mother's cardigan. Thelma Myers, the woman who talked me out of quitting nursing school. Tell me everything. Wednesday afternoon, Patricia Callahan's office, 2nd floor, above the old Decker Pharmacy on Main Street. The kind of building where the stairs creak and the radiators hiss, and the law practice has been there longer than the pharmacy has been closed. Patricia is 55. Sharp jaw, reading glasses on a chain. She was 19 when I met her. a first-year nursing student at the community college, ready to drop out because her organic chemistry grade was a D- and her financial aid required a C. I stayed after class, tutored her for 6 weeks. She passed with a B. She became a lawyer instead of a nurse. Best thing that ever happened to elder law in this county. She examined the deed, Irene's letter, Arthur's note, turned each page with the same care I'd taught her to use handling patient charts. The deed is genuine. Irene Caldwell purchased 412 Birch Lane in 1986. She never transferred it. Patricia looked up. You've occupied, through tenants, maintained, insured, and paid taxes on this duplex for 14 years since Irene's death. That's a resulting trust combined with adverse possession elements. Strong. Arthur's note confirms the intent. Irene's letter confirms the same. Both handwritten. Irene's is dated. We filed the deed with the county recorder's office. Initiate a quiet title action. 30 to 45 days. And the rental income, the tenants? Yours. The tenants stay. Nothing changes operationally. I told her about Vanessa, the comps, the filing cabinet. Running comps on a property she has no authority over? Using her license? And Kevin checked my bank accounts from his office computer. Patricia set down the documents, took off her reading glasses. The look on her face was the one I recognized from 30 years ago. The look of a student who just realized the exam was harder than she thought. Thelma, I need you to tell me everything. Thursday. Patricia's conference room. A table built for depositions, long enough to spread out every document I owned. The heather gray cardigan was draped over the chair beside me, interior pocket open. The snap Irene had salvaged. The wool smelled of lavender and cedar from my closet, and under the overhead lights it looked exactly like what it was. 45 years of hospital shifts, hand-knit by a cafeteria worker who believed safe pockets could save her daughter. On the table, the deed. Irene's letter. Arthur's note. 14 years of property tax receipts for 412 Birch Lane, organized by year in manila folders. Insurance records from the same carrier since 2010. Maintenance receipts totaling $47,000. New roof in 2015. Plumbing overhaul in 2019. Furnace replacement in 2023. Every invoice filed. Every payment documented. Next to those, tenant leases. Linda Vasquez's signed lease, renewed 9 times running. The Garcia family, 3 years. Rent deposit records. Security deposit accounts at the county-required interest rate. Patricia stood at the end of the table, surveying the spread. This is the most meticulous property management file I've seen from a client who doesn't have a management company. I'm a nurse. I keep charts. This is just a different kind of chart. Patricia laid out what she'd uncovered in 5 days of quiet work. Kevin's bank access, logged by his employer's IT system. She'd confirmed the record existed through a contact in corporate compliance. Vanessa's MLS activity, 4 searches, a draft listing, 2 contacts to outside parties, all documented under her agent, ED. Gretchen's hospital call, flagged by Good Shepherd's Patient Advocacy Office. My former colleague, Dr. Miriam Oakes, confirmed the record and offered to provide a statement. We file the deed Monday. I'm preparing a cease and desist for Vanessa. Unauthorized real estate activity on your property. She paused. And a formal complaint to the state licensing board. I picked up the cardigan, ran my thumb along the darned cuff. The spot worn thin from 45 years of reaching across hospital beds to take pulses. I could still see it in the hospital bin. Gray wool against white plastic under fluorescent light. The image hadn't left me. Vanessa called this practically rags. My mother knit this the year I became a nurse. 45 years of hospital shifts are in this wool, and she sewed a building into the pocket. Friday afternoon, my phone rang while I was icing my knee on the living room couch. The physical therapist said 20 minutes on, 20 off, and I follow instructions because I wrote those instructions for other patients for 36 years. Ruth Sanger, neighbor of 30 years, retired high school English teacher, lives 4 houses down in the yellow Cape Cod with the flagpole Arthur helped her install in 2009. Thelma, it's Ruth. I need to tell you something, and I need you to sit down. I'm already sitting, Ruth. Bad knee. Good, because you're going to want to be sitting, Ruth explained. Wednesday morning, 2 days ago, Vanessa had visited the neighborhood, not our street, the block behind us where the houses face Birch Avenue. She knocked on the Hendersons' door, the Braddocks, the Nguyens. She told each of them the same thing. Thelma is probably going to be moving into assisted living soon. Vanessa had smiled. Her health isn't great after the surgery. Kevin and I will be handling the house. Ruth heard this from Bev Henderson over coffee Thursday morning. I told Bev that Vanessa was out of her mind. Thelma Myers was up on a ladder cleaning her gutters 3 months ago. Ruth's voice tightened. You rewired your own porch light last summer. Assisted living. That woman has some nerve. Thank you, Ruth. Would you be willing to write that down and sign it? I'll sign it in front of a notary if you want. That woman has been measuring your windows for curtains she hasn't bought yet. I called Patricia. Patricia took Ruth's statement under oath the next morning. The picture was becoming clear. Vanessa wasn't just after the duplex. She was pre-selling my house to the neighbors, telling them I was going to assisted living. Before any doctor had said a word, before any family discussion, before I had agreed to anything at all. Saturday. Dr. Miriam Oakes called me at 9 in the morning. I recognized her number before I picked up. 20 years working the same hospital corridor. You learn everyone's extension and their cell. Thelma, this is Miriam. Something happened this week that I want you to know about. Miriam is 66, chief of cardiology at Good Shepherd. We started in the same year. She as a first-year resident, me as a floor nurse in medical surgical. I taught her how to read a patient's face before she read their chart. She taught me the difference between a type 1 and type 2 MI on an EKG strip. 20 years of professional partnership. The patient advocacy office received a call on Tuesday, the day after you were discharged. Miriam paused. A woman claiming to be family requested your discharge summary and cognitive assessment results. Who? She identified herself as Mrs. Hale, Gretchen, Cole Hale, Vanessa's mother, the woman who cleaned other people's houses and learned other people's financial layouts and now wanted to examine my medical records from a hospital where I'd spent 3 decades. The receptionist flagged it. She's not on your authorized contact list. No information was released. I said nothing for a moment. Let my pulse settle. Nursing training. When the reading spikes, you don't react, you note it. Miriam, thank you. There's more, Thelma. Miriam's voice dropped. I was on the floor Tuesday during your stay. I saw your daughter-in-law in your room. I heard how she spoke to you, the way she handled your things. She paused. I'm willing to provide a written statement if you need one. You'd do that? You trained me, Thelma. You taught me how to read a room. Let me help you read this one. I called Patricia, added another piece to the evidence file. The picture wasn't just becoming clear, it was becoming a chart, and every vital sign pointed in the same direction. Monday, Patricia pulled the MLS records for 412 Birch Lane. The paper trail was precise. Vanessa's agent, ED, her professional license number, tied to every search and every contact, had accessed the property listing 4 times in 7 days. She ran comparable sales analysis on 3 separate occasions. She created a draft listing in the MLS system, unpublished but saved. She'd even driven by and taken exterior photos from her car. 2 documented contacts, Dennis Moore, her colleague at the brokerage, about a possible listing, and Frank Harmon, the property investor, about an off-market duplex at 320. Patricia laid it out for me over the phone, her voice steady and precise, the way I'd taught her to report a patient's condition. Facts first, conclusions after. A licensed agent marketing a property without the owner's authorization. That's a licensing board violation. Patricia's voice was flat. She's not a co-owner. She's not your agent. There's no listing agreement. She paused, and she contacted an investor at $20,000 below her own comp estimate. What do we do? 2 things. First, I file the deed at the county recorder's office today. Quiet title action initiated. She paused. 412 Birch Lane, Thelma Myers, owner. Second, I draft a formal complaint to the Pennsylvania Real Estate Commission and a cease and desist letter for Vanessa. Patricia filed the deed that afternoon. Vanessa found out within 48 hours. She monitors new filings. It's part of her real estate work, watching for property transfers and title changes in the county system. Kevin called her from the car. Mom filed the deed. She has a lawyer. Vanessa. Who? Patricia Callahan. The woman Mom mentored 30 years ago? A nursing student turned lawyer? She's an elder law specialist now, Vanessa. Silence on Vanessa's end. The kind of silence that happens when a person who plans for everything realizes someone else has been planning too. Tuesday evening, Kevin came to my house alone, no Vanessa. He sat at the kitchen table. Arthur's table. Pine, hand-built in 1996, legs slightly uneven because Arthur believed perfection was for machines and dinner tables should have character. The wood had darkened with 28 years of coffee rings and homework and Thanksgiving gravy. Kevin folded his hands on the table. He looked like a man who'd rehearsed his opening line on the drive over and was already losing confidence in it. Mom, why didn't you tell me about the duplex? Did I need to? I'm your son. I thought we told each other everything. I let the sentence settle. Then, you told me everything, Kevin? Did you tell me Vanessa went through my filing cabinet while I was in the hospital? Did you tell me she's been calling investors about my property? Kevin stared at his hands. Did you tell me you checked my bank accounts from your office computer on Monday morning at 8:52 a.m.? His face went white. The color drained from his cheeks down to his jaw the way it does in a patient going into shock. I've seen that face 1,000 times. Different patients, same physiology. How do you... I'm a nurse, Kevin. I read charts. I let a beat pass. Your company has IT monitoring. Your bank has access logs. 2 records. Neither of them lie. Vanessa asked me to. You've been saying that since you were 25 years old. At what point does Vanessa ask me to become I chose to? Kevin stared at his hands, still on Arthur's table. Arthur's hands built that table. Kevin's hands rifled through my bank accounts. I love you. You are my son. But you came here tonight to ask why I didn't trust you. I think you already know the answer. He left, didn't slam the door, closed it quietly behind him. That's worse. Slamming is anger. Quiet is shame. Wednesday. Vanessa called Diane, my daughter, 38, occupational therapist. Lives 2 hours south in Allentown, independent, direct. Doesn't answer calls from Vanessa unless something is wrong. Diane, this is Vanessa. Her voice was careful. I think we need to have a family conversation about your mother. She's keeping things from us. She has a property we didn't know about. A pause. After the surgery, she's not herself. Diane's voice went flat. Mom just had a knee replacement, Vanessa. She's recovering. That's exactly why we need to talk. She needs support. Come Saturday. Diane hung up, called me. Mom, Vanessa just called me. She wants a family meeting on Saturday at your house. She's saying you're not yourself. I know exactly who I am, Diane. Come Saturday, but come for me. I'm already packing. I called Patricia. Saturday at 10, my kitchen. Kevin, Vanessa, probably Gretchen, and Diane. I'll be there. And Patricia, bring everything. Friday night. The house was quiet. I sat in my bedroom. The cardigan was on the chair where Arthur used to drape his work shirt. The documents were in a canvas tote bag. The same bag I used to carry charts between the hospital and the nursing school. I picked up the cardigan, held it against my chest. My mother knit this with overtime money from a school cafeteria. She sewed a building deed into the pocket. She wrote, "Don't let anyone take it." Tomorrow, my son's wife would sit at my kitchen table, the table my husband built, and tell me I needed to sell what my mother gave me. And I would show her what a nurse who keeps charts can do with the right records. My mother hid a $340,000 building deed inside the pocket of a cardigan my daughter-in-law called Rags. She wrote a letter that said, "Don't let anyone take it." Tomorrow I was going to sit in my own kitchen and prove that throwing away a nurse's cardigan was the most expensive mistake my daughter-in-law ever made. Stay with me. The meeting is next. Saturday, 10 in the morning, my kitchen. Arthur's pine table seated 6. I'd made coffee. The same percolator I've used for 19 years, the one that takes 8 minutes and makes a sound like a sleeping cat. 2 cups were already poured. Mine and the one I'd set at Diane's place. Kevin arrived first. Dark circles under his eyes. His shirt was wrinkled at the collar. Kevin, who irons everything, who folds his undershirts the way I taught him when he was 14, he hadn't slept. He sat at the table and didn't touch the coffee. Vanessa followed. Blazer, folder, laptop under her arm. Professional mode. The version of herself she puts on when she walks into a listing appointment. She'd brought printouts, Birch Lane comps, a family asset summary on a spreadsheet, and a draft listing agreement. She set the laptop on Arthur's table like she was setting up a conference room. Gretchen arrived 10 minutes later, uninvited. Vanessa hadn't mentioned she was coming. She wore a gray coat, sat in the chair by the kitchen door, and placed her purse on her lap, watching. The way she watched from the doorways of every house she cleaned for 25 years. Diane arrived last, drove 2 hours through morning fog. She hugged me at the front door, hard the way she hugged when she was 6 and I came home from a night shift. She sat next to me at the table. Vanessa took charge. Thank you all for being here. This is about Mom's future. She opened her laptop. She has assets the family should be aware of. We need to make sure she's properly supported. I sat at the head of my own table. The heather gray cardigan was folded in front of me like a centerpiece. The canvas tote bag was at my feet. Patricia Callahan was parked on Maple Drive, 2 houses down, waiting for my text. Vanessa brought a laptop and a listing agreement. I brought a cardigan and 14 years of receipts. Vanessa opened her laptop. The screen glowed blue against Arthur's pine table. She clicked to the spreadsheet and turned the laptop so everyone could see. Mom has a house worth about $420,000. She scrolled. A duplex on Birch Lane worth $340,000. Liquid savings of about $300,000. She paused. Let the numbers fill the room. In total, over $1 million in assets. One person managing a loan. She turned to Diane. I'm not saying Mom is doing anything wrong. I'm saying she needs help. She just had surgery. She's 72, living alone. Gretchen from the doorway. She's been keeping things from the family, Vanessa. That's not healthy. I noted the choreography, the rehearsed sequence. Vanessa the presenter, Gretchen the chorus. Vanessa leaned forward. The duplex should be sold. It's the smart move. She straightened. I can list it. I know the market. I know the buyers. We sell, take the proceeds, and set Mom up in a nice assisted living. Diane. Assisted living? Mom just had a knee replacement. She's not... Vanessa cut in. Diane, you live 2 hours away. You don't see what Kevin and I see every day. Kevin, quiet. Vanessa. Kevin, let me finish. I hadn't spoken. I was watching. A nurse's watch. The same observation I used on the hospital floor for 36 years. You don't interrupt a patient who's telling you their symptoms. You let them talk. You watch their hands, their eyes, the way they shift in the chair. You wait for the chart to stop matching the story. My daughter-in-law used the word help. Her mother used the word healthy. Neither of them used the word sorry. The coffee percolator clicked off behind me. The kitchen was warm. Arthur's table held a spreadsheet of my life and 3 people who wanted to divide it. Silence, the kind that presses against the walls. Everyone looked at me. I've been looked at in rooms before. Hospital rooms where the family is waiting for test results. Classrooms where first-year students are waiting for the clinical scenario. Boardrooms where the nursing department is waiting for the budget decision. I know how to hold a silence. Silence is a tool, same as a stethoscope. Vanessa, you said this is about my future. Let me show you my future. I picked up my phone from the table, typed one word, sent it. Now. 2 minutes later, the front door opened. Patricia Callahan walked into my kitchen. Navy suit, brown briefcase, the leather one she bought the year she passed the bar. I know because she sent me a photo with the caption, "From nursing textbooks to case law, thanks to you." Vanessa straightened in her chair. Mom, you brought a lawyer. This is a family meeting. It is, and Patricia is family in every way that matters. I taught her to take a blood pressure 30 years ago. She taught herself the law. I trust her with both. Patricia set the briefcase on the counter, opened the clasp, a sharp click that cut through the kitchen quiet. Good morning. I'm Patricia Callahan, elder law attorney, representing Thelma Myers. I have several documents relevant to this discussion. Gretchen's face changed. The composure she'd maintained from the doorway cracked at the edges. She didn't expect a lawyer. Puppet masters don't plan for the puppet to have representation. Kevin swallowed, looked at his hands. His tell. The same thing he does when he's about to fail a test he didn't study for. Vanessa. This is unnecessary. We're just talking about options. Then let's talk with documents, Vanessa. I've found they're more reliable than spreadsheets made from someone else's bank accounts. The room went still. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. She knew I knew. Patricia placed the first document on Arthur's table. She set it down the way I taught her to set down a patient chart. Flat, centered, facing the audience. This is the property deed for 412 Birch Lane, originally purchased by Irene Caldwell in 1986. Patricia paused. As of last Monday, it has been recorded at the county recorder's office in Thelma Myers' name. She looked up. The recording is based on a resulting trust, confirmed by 14 years of continuous tax payment, insurance, maintenance, and operation. She let the sentence land. Then, a quiet title action has been initiated. The title will be fully cleared in Thelma's name within 30 to 45 days. No other party has standing to contest. Vanessa's voice pitched higher. You already filed it? I filed it because it's my building, Vanessa. I kept my voice level, pulse steady. The way you talk to a family in a hospital waiting room when the news is complicated and the walls are thin. My husband paid for it. My mother signed for it. I've maintained it for 14 years. Here are the receipts. I reached into the canvas tote at my feet, pulled out the first folder, then the second, then the third. 14 years of property tax receipts, insurance records, maintenance invoices, $47,000 in documented repairs and upgrades. New roof, 2015, $11,200. Plumbing overhaul, 2019, $8,900. Furnace replacement, 2023, $6,400. Every one of them filed, paid, and recorded in my handwriting. The same precise print I used on patient charts for 36 years. I laid them on the table, one folder at a time. Gretchen shifted in her chair by the door. The wooden legs scraped against the kitchen tile. Vanessa tried again, but the title was in Grandma Irene's name. Patricia held up the next document. Which is why we have this. I took the letter from Patricia. She offered it and I took it, because these words were my mother's, and I would be the one to read them in my own kitchen. This is my mother's handwriting, dated 2008, 2 years before she died. The paper was yellowed along the fold lines. Irene's print was small, careful, the same hand that labeled every lunch tray at Maple Street Elementary for 30 years. Chicken patty, mashed potatoes, fruit cup, Tuesday. I read, Thelma, the duplex is yours. Arthur and I agreed. He paid for it, I signed for it, but it was always meant for you. I paused, let the sentence hang in the kitchen the way Irene's voice used to hang in our apartment above the hardware store. Quiet, certain, never raised. You worked nights for 20 years to keep this family fed. This is your safety net. Pause. Don't let anyone take it. Love, Mama. The kitchen was silent. Diane was crying, quiet tears that slid without sound. Kevin's jaw was clenched so tight the muscle jumped beneath his ear. I held up the second piece of paper. And this is Arthur's handwriting. Blocky letters. No flourish, a plumber's print on the back of an invoice. The Birch Lane property is Thelma's. I put it in Irene's name for the mortgage, but it's Thelma's building. She earned every brick of it. Vanessa spoke. Her voice had thinned. Letters aren't legal documents, Patricia answered without looking at her. Under Pennsylvania law, a resulting trust is established when property was purchased with one party's funds and placed in another's name. She let the sentence settle. The letters, combined with Arthur's payment records and Thelma's 14 years of management, create an airtight chain. A beat. I welcome any challenge. Gretchen from the doorway. This is still a family matter. I turned to her. Then let's talk about what the family has been doing, Gretchen, starting with your phone call to Good Shepherd Hospital. The color left her face like water draining from a sink. Patricia placed the hospital's record on the table, a single page, typed, stamped with Good Shepherd's letterhead. On Tuesday of last week, the day after Thelma was discharged, a woman identifying herself as Mrs. Hale called Good Shepherd's patient advocacy office. Patricia looked up from the page. She requested Thelma's discharge summary and cognitive assessment results. A pause. She was not on the authorized contact list. The call was flagged and documented. Patricia looked at Gretchen. Mrs. Hale, that's your married name, Gretchen. Gretchen's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I was concerned about my daughter-in-law's. I'm not your daughter-in-law, Gretchen, and you requested my cognitive assessment. I kept my voice even. No waver, no heat. From a hospital where I worked for 28 years, where the chief of cardiology learned beside me, Dr. Oak's written statement went on the table next. 2 paragraphs signed and notarized. I have worked alongside Thelma Myers for 20 years. She is cognitively sharp, professionally competent, and the most meticulous person I have worked with in my career. I place my hands flat on the table. The same position I use when I'm about to deliver a care plan to a patient's family. Clear, steady, final. The property is settled. The competency question is answered. Now let's talk about the 2 of you. I turned to Kevin and Vanessa. Patricia opened the next folder. 2 matters. The first involves a computer at Regional Heritage Insurance. The second involves the Pennsylvania Real Estate Commission. Kevin's throat moved. Vanessa's hands went still on the keyboard of her open laptop. Patricia placed the document on the table. A printout, columns of dates, times, IP addresses. On Monday of last week at 8:52 a.m., Thelma's bank accounts were accessed from an IP address registered to Regional Heritage Insurance, Kevin's employer. Kevin's head came up. I was just checking. Kevin. Patricia's voice had the professional steadiness of someone who has delivered bad news in courtrooms. You used your employer's computer to access your mother's accounts without her authorization. She set down the page. Your company's acceptable use policy prohibits personal financial access from company devices. The IT system logged the access at the URL level. I spoke, voice low, steady, the way I spoke to patients who needed to hear something difficult. You looked at my bank accounts from your office, Kevin. You saw how much I had, and you texted the numbers to Vanessa. Kevin's mouth moved. Nothing came out. You checked my bank accounts from your office computer. That's not concern, Kevin. That's surveillance. The words sat in the kitchen like a stone dropped in still water. Kevin flinched. Mom, I was trying to understand. You were trying to see how much I was worth, at your wife's request, from your employer's computer. I paused. Let the mathematics of consequence settle. If I send that access log to your company's HR department, what happens to your job, Kevin? His hands shook on the table. He knew. Every IT worker knows the acceptable use policy. Written warning at best, termination at worst. And in this economy, at 41, with 68,000 in debt, there is no at worst. There is only falling. Diane spoke from beside me. You checked Mom's bank accounts? While she was recovering from surgery? Kevin reached for the only rope he had left. Vanessa asked me to. Diane's voice cut clean. Stop! Stop saying that! Patricia placed the next document, MLS records. Vanessa's agent ID printed in the header of every page. Vanessa, your agent ID accessed the MLS listing for 412 Birch Lane 4 times in 7 days. Patricia turned the page. You ran comparable sales analysis. You created a draft listing, saved, but not published. She set down a second page. You contacted Dennis Moore about a possible listing, and you contacted Frank Harmon about an off-market duplex at 320. She looked up. $20,000 below your own comp estimate. Vanessa's professional composure cracked. I watched it happen the way I've watched 1,000 patients try to maintain control when the diagnosis lands. The jaw tightens, the eyes go bright, the hands grip whatever is closest. I was researching for the family. You have no listing agreement, no authorization from the property owner, no legal standing of any kind. Patricia's voice was flat, professional, final. Marketing a property without the owner's consent violates the Pennsylvania Real Estate Commission's Code of Ethics. A formal complaint has been prepared. I picked up the cardigan from the table, held it up so the kitchen light caught the heather gray wool, the cracked leather buttons, the darned left cuff. You threw this cardigan into a hospital bin while I was recovering from surgery. I held it steady. You said it was practically rags. My mother knit this cardigan the year I became a nurse, and she sewed a secret inside it that outlasted her. I set the cardigan down. Patricia placed Ruth Sanger's sworn affidavit on the table. Last Wednesday, you visited my neighbors, the Hendersons, the Braddocks, the Nguyens. I kept my voice level. You told them I was going into assisted living and that my house would be available. Ruth Sanger provided a sworn statement. Vanessa, you were selling my house before I agreed to leave it. You were selling my duplex before you had the right. I held her gaze. And you threw my mother's cardigan in the trash while I was too medicated to stand without an IV pole. Diane stood up. You told the neighbors Mom was going into a home while she was recovering from surgery. Vanessa's voice cracked. I was trying to help. You were trying to sell. There's a difference. The room was still. Kevin stared at the table, Arthur's table, like a man searching the wood grain for an exit. Vanessa's composure had cracked, mascara tracking, jaw loose, the professional sheen gone. Gretchen hadn't moved from the doorway. Diane stood beside me, arms crossed. Patricia, is there anything else? The Real Estate Commission complaint will be filed Monday, unless Ms. Myers-Hale provides written acknowledgement that she will cease all activity related to Thelma's properties. Patricia turned a page. Kevin's employer IT log will be forwarded to his HR department unless he provides the same. A beat. And the hospital's record of Gretchen's unauthorized inquiry is preserved for any future proceeding. Vanessa was crying. The tears came fast the way they come from people who cry to escape corners, not because they're sorry. You're going to ruin my license. You marketed my property without my permission. You told my neighbors I was going into assisted living. I held her gaze, steady, the way you hold eye contact with a patient who doesn't want to hear the prognosis. You threw my mother's cardigan in a hospital bin. A pause. I'm giving you a door, Vanessa. Walk through it. I turned to Kevin. Kevin, you are my son. I love you. I carried you and I raised you, and I will always love you. I paused. Let the love stand in the room before the boundary. But you will never let your wife make decisions about my life again. You will never check my bank accounts. My voice held steady. And you will never, ever stand by while someone throws away the things your grandmother made for me. I took that cardigan out of the bin without a word, because I learned from my mother, you don't explain yourself to someone who sees everything you love as something to throw away. Kevin's eyes were wet, not Vanessa's strategic tears. Real shame, the kind that starts in the chest and climbs. If you want to be my son, really my son, that starts with choosing who you are, not who Vanessa tells you to be. The kitchen emptied slowly. Vanessa left first, gathering her laptop and folder without looking at anyone. Gretchen followed, no goodbye. The front door closed behind them, and I heard Gretchen's car start in the driveway. A 10-year-old sedan with a muffler that needed work. Patricia packed her briefcase, squeezed my hand. I'll call Monday. Diane was washing coffee cups at the sink. Kevin sat at Arthur's table, head in his hands. The table his father built with plumber's hands. The same table where Kevin ate cereal on Saturday mornings for 18 years. Mom. I waited. A nurse waits. I've been the responsible one my whole life. Good grades. Good job. Good marriage. At least that's what I told myself. He looked up, red-eyed, 41 years old and looking 12. Diane got to be free. I got to be reliable. His voice broke on the last word. And then Vanessa found the duplex, and all I could think was, Mom had a safety net this whole time, while I was drowning in debt and trying to be the good son. She had a building. I had a building your father paid for with 35 years of plumbing. I had a safety net your grandmother signed with cafeteria wages, and I maintained it for 14 years with my own hands. I kept my voice steady. That's not hiding, Kevin. That's working. I know that now. Knowing it now isn't enough. You have to live it. He nodded, stood, walked to the door. I'm sorry about the cardigan, Mom. I know. He left. Not reconciliation, not rupture. A crack in the wall. Whether it widens or repairs depends entirely on what Kevin does next. Within 3 weeks, the consequences landed. Specific, measurable. The way vital signs are measurable. Vanessa, formal complaint filed with the Pennsylvania Real Estate Commission. Listing privileges suspended 90 days. The $20,000 commission evaporated. Kevin, I gave him 1 week to deliver a written acknowledgement. Cease all unauthorized access to my accounts. He delivered it Thursday. Hand-signed. The IT log stayed in Patricia's file, not forwarded to HR, not destroyed. Patricia's word for it? Insurance. Gretchen, cease and desist letter, certified mail, the hospital record preserved. The deed. Quiet title action completed in 38 days. 412 Birch Lane, titled to Thelma Myers, clear, uncontested. I stood at the clerk's counter and thought of Irene signing the original deed in 1986 with her cafeteria worker's hand. Linda Vasquez and the Garcias stayed. $34,800 a year. I manage it myself, same as I have for 14 years. I took the cardigan to Agatha Marsh, 78, retired seamstress. Still does alterations from her living room on Elm Street. Agatha darned the cuffs with matching heather gray wool and replaced the cracked leather buttons with vintage ones from a shop in Lancaster. Same era. Close enough that Arthur would have approved. This is beautiful work, Agatha said, running her fingers along the collar. Whoever knit this knew what she was doing. My mother, she worked in a school cafeteria and knit at night. The best things are always made by hands that should have been resting. The interior pocket, I left it intact. The snap is still there. The pocket is empty now. The documents are with Patricia, but the pocket stays. It is part of the architecture. I wore the cardigan home. Heather gray wool, leather buttons, lavender still faintly in the fibers. My house, my duplex, my cardigan, my terms. Diane started driving up every 2 weeks, not out of obligation, out of choice. The difference matters. She brought her tools. Occupational therapist's eye. She looked at my kitchen the way I look at a hospital room. Function, access, safety. Mom, let me adjust the shelf heights. Post-surgery recovery, you shouldn't be reaching above your shoulders for another month. I've been reaching for things my whole life, Diane. I know, let me help anyway. We sat on the porch, coffee. The cardigan was on my shoulders, the repaired cuffs resting on my wrists. Arthur's van was in the driveway. The tomato plants were starting their June climb. You know what got me? Diane said. Not the deed, not the money. The fact that she threw Grandma Irene's cardigan in the trash while you were in a hospital bed. That's what I can't forgive. You don't have to forgive it. You just have to remember what it taught you about who to trust. I began volunteering at Good Shepherd's Patient Comfort Program every Wednesday afternoon, the same hospital where I spent 28 years taking vitals and teaching new nurses how to read a room. I knit cardigans, heather gray wool, leather buttons, 1 per month, each one left at the nurse's station with a handwritten note, for a patient who needs warmth. TM, the nurses know. Half of them sat in my classroom. Rachel Torres, one of my last students, stopped me in the corridor. Mrs. Myers, you're checking on us now. Old nurses don't retire, Rachel, they just change fabric. I knit. Gray wool, leather buttons, and every cardigan has a pocket on the inside right. Deep, hidden behind the lining, closed with a snap. Every single one. An empty pocket, but a pocket that could hold anything. 6 weeks later, a text from Kevin. Mom, I enrolled in a financial counseling program. Vanessa and I are in couples therapy. I know it's not enough, but I wanted you to know I'm trying. I read it twice. Set the phone on the nightstand. Picked up the cardigan from the chair where Arthur used to leave his work shirt, and held it for a moment. Then I typed, come for coffee on Sunday, come alone. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a door. My son checked my bank accounts and let his wife throw my cardigan in the trash. Now he's in therapy and I'm knitting cardigans for strangers. Life doesn't always stitch straight, but if you keep the tension right, it holds. That's my story. One cardigan, one hidden pocket, and a daughter-in-law who learned that the things we throw away sometimes hold more than we'll ever earn. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video, drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.